Picture this scene. It's midnight. Someone knocks on your door. You open it and see a pale figure with red eyes and a sinister smile, a vampire. But here's the intriguing detail. It can't simply enter. It needs your invitation, your consent. Why do creatures so powerful, capable of flying, transforming into mist, and living forever, need permission to cross a simple door? The answer lies in the depths of European folklore, and it's far more fascinating than you can imagine. Before Hollywood turned vampires into romantic heartthrobs or terror monsters, these creatures terrorized villages in Eastern Europe. Romania, Greece, Russia, Croatia, each culture had its own version of the bloodthirsty undead. The Romanians called them strigoi and moroi. The Greeks called them vrykolakas. The Russians called them UPR. Different names, but one common rule appeared repeatedly: they cannot enter without being invited. But where does this belief come from? And more importantly, why does this rule exist? To answer this, we need to go back to the year 1645, Leo Alatius. This name probably means nothing to you, but it should. This Greek theologian, librarian of the Vatican, was possibly the first modern author to systematically document beliefs about vampires. In his work De Graecorum Hodie Corundam Opinationibus, which means On the Beliefs of Some Modern Greeks, Alatius recorded something disturbing that was happening on the Greek island of Chios. The residents believed that the Vrykolakas, the Greek vampire, would leave its tomb at night, go from house to house knocking on doors and calling residents by name with a hoarse, deep voice. And here's the crucial detail. If the person answered the first time they were called, they would die within 24 hours. That's why the inhabitants of Chios developed a survival rule: never answer on the first call, because the vampire could only call once. If you were called a second time, it wasn't the vampire, it was a normal person. Answering the call was equivalent to inviting death inside. But this was only in Greece. The belief spread throughout all of Eastern Europe. In Romania, birthplace of the most famous legends, there were the strigoi, troubled spirits, who rose from the grave. They could transform into animals, become invisible, and drain the vitality from their victims. The strigoi were dangerous, yes, but even they respected the sacred threshold of the home. They couldn't cross it without permission. The Greek Vrykolakas had a terrible appearance, its body swollen like a drum, which is why it was also called tympanios, meaning drum-like. Witnesses said that seeing it during the day was so horrible that people would die of fright, unless they spoke to the monster, which would then immediately disappear. The Slavic UPR had a unique and terrifying power. It could drain your life force just by looking at you, or by touching you with its hands. Different cultures, different continents, but all agreed the vampire needs an invitation. And if you're enjoying discovering these origins of vampire folklore, subscribe to the channel, because every week we explore the true roots behind the myths we know today. But we still haven't answered the main question: why does this rule exist? The answer lies in three intertwined concepts that were sacred to ancient cultures. First, the sanctity of the home. In medieval Europe, the home wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a sacred space, blessed, spiritually protected. The threshold doorstep was considered a portal between two worlds, a liminal space, neither inside nor outside. And precisely because of this, it was extremely vulnerable. People would place crosses on doors, spread salt on door frames, hang horseshoes, all to protect this entry point. Vampires, as supernatural beings associated with evil and the profane, simply could not violate this sacred space without explicit permission. Second, the code of sacred hospitality. In ancient Greece, there was a concept called ixenia, sacred hospitality. Zeus, the king of the gods, was the personal guarantor of this law, as Zeus Xenios. The rule was simple but rigid. Any stranger who knocked on your door should be well received, fed and protected. Refusing hospitality was an offense to the gods themselves. But here's the paradox. Vampires were seen as unholy, without honor. So as dishonorable beings, they could not be invited by normal tradition, unless the owner of the house specifically invited them in, breaking the natural protection. Third, free will and consent. And here we arrive at the deepest symbolism of all. The vampire represents evil, and one of humanity's oldest beliefs is that evil cannot simply force its way into our lives. We have to somehow allow it to enter, through naivety, through carelessness, through choice. The vampire invitation is a perfect metaphor. Danger needs our consent, even if unconscious, to destroy us. In 1897, an Irish writer named Bram Stoker consolidated these scattered legends into a single iconic character, Count Dracula. Stoker didn't invent the invitation rule, as we've seen it had already existed for centuries, but he popularized it to the Western world. In the book, Dracula cannot simply invade Lucy Westenra's house. He needs to be creative, so he exploits her sleepwalking, luring her to the window, making her invite him in, even unconsciously. Later, to reach Mina, Dracula uses Renfield, an asylum patient who was already under his influence, to obtain the necessary invitation. And Stoker established another crucial rule: once the vampire is invited, it can come and go freely from then on. The invitation is permanent, and this version by Stoker influenced everything that came after. The Vampire Diaries maintains the classic rule: vampires need an invitation, and only lose permission if the property changes ownership. True Blood added an interesting twist. Humans can revoke the invitation, and the vampire is forced to leave immediately. But The Lost Boys completely inverted it. In this film, vampires can enter anywhere they want, but voluntarily inviting a vampire in makes it invulnerable to all its traditional weaknesses. And films like Blade simply ignored the rule completely, showing vampires invading any place. Each adaptation interprets it in its own way, but the essence remains. So the next time you watch a vampire movie and see that powerful creature waiting politely outside the door, remember it's not just a narrative trick. It's a reflection of ancient beliefs about the sanctity of home, the power of human free will, and the idea that evil no matter how strong, cannot destroy us unless we let it in. It's a lesson that transcends folklore. We are the guardians of our own thresholds, and some doors simply should not be opened. If you want to uncover more mythology mysteries and discover the truths behind the legends, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments, which vampire myth do you want me to explore next? Until the next mythology, if you survive until then.